Well, in this video, I'm going to get back to the roots of my channel and go back to interpreting material from antiquity. And in this video, what I'm going to do is describe what Adam and Eve is. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. Now, first of all, the Adam and Eve story, we all know what the Adam and Eve story is. Most people in the world probably, even if you don't know it very well. The Christians don't interpret the Adam and Eve story. They treat it as if it's factual. I do not, and I will not. And for any Christian that's viewing right now, you're going to hear something different here, and you cannot take away from what I'm doing here. All right, I'm interpreting something that you will not interpret. If I go to a Jewish rabbi and I asked him, what does this mean here, this Adam and Eve story? It doesn't make sense to me. I went to church, and by 5th grade Sunday school, I was told that it just happened. In 7 days, this happened. That's the way the world started. It's bingo, just like it says, just like that right there. And the rabbi laughs at me and says, this is metaphorical material. It's very old and it's difficult to understand, but you must work to understand it. If it's not for you to understand, then you can worship it. You can do something else with it. But if you understand it, you have to do that on your own. And I knew then that there was something there that I had to find on my own. And when I grew up in church and they said, that's all there is to it, and I thought, well, that just doesn't sound right. I was correct. It doesn't sound right. For the theist and the atheist that are going to say, yes, it happened, no, it didn't, yes, it happened, no, it didn't, I don't even want to hear from you. There's something in this story that is different. There's a psychological teaching in this story that needs to be extracted. And if you can't get that out of there, you're not interpreting it anyway. So don't even bother. This isn't for you. Now, I want to be careful because I don't know how the audience, I don't want to go through and just read it and we've all heard it before. I want to look at it in a different light. But first thing I want to say is that we have to consider an interpretation process that is very objective and it's very mental. We have to disconnect ourselves emotionally from the story and understand that there is actually a psychological teaching in there that we can mentally interact with. And that what we're getting in creation is indeed creation. However, it is not the creation of the world. It is the creation of your experience in the world. It's turned inside out. It's metaphorically written in such a way that it sounds like it's the creation of the world, but it's really, if you turn inward, it's the creation of your perception of the world. And Adam and Eve are both you. Adam and Eve exists. Every time a baby is born, that's Adam. And once that baby develops to the point that it is now consciously self-aware of itself and is happy and playing, they're in the Garden of Eden. They have not yet judged life. They have not yet experienced life, which is represented by a talking snake who tempts them. What is that? God's told them there's 2 trees in the garden that are in the middle of the garden, a tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now you can eat of all the trees in the garden. However, you can't eat of that one of the knowledge of good and evil. So the tree of life is still there untouched. What happened though? This is normal life. This is the conscious and the subconscious. The Adam is every person's consciousness. Eve is everybody's inner being that comes about as a result of your learning later. Eve's not there at first. We emerge from the background, wherever we come from. We show up here and we show up as Adam, as a blank mind, almost blank. There's some preloaded conditions in there. We've got brain types and different things like that. You know, we're all different in some respects. We come born with certain propensities. Beyond that, though, we become products of our judged life experiences. And that's what is happening in the story, that really we're seeing Adam and Eve. Adam starting out first, that's the infant self, Eve emerging. Now we are old enough to be self-aware. We've named enough things. What does that mean? I've learned my ABCs, naming, learning, naming in my experience. So now I've learned my ABCs, I've learned colors, I've learned enough things to now be self-aware, and I have memories. Now I am Adam and Eve, but I'm happy in the Garden of Eden. I'm a little child playing with my Tonka trucks in the sandbox or dolls or whatever the case may be. Pick whatever works for you. Riding the bike in the yard, doing something. In my day, it was the Tonka trucks and jumping the bike over milk cans, sort of things for fun outside and playing in the woods. Okay, so that's the time in life where Adam and Eve are naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. But then metaphorically, what happens is we experience life. Oh, I got molested. I got raped. I did something bad. I feel guilt. I feel shame. I feel hurt. That self is no longer in the Garden of Eden, metaphorically. That's a space to be. You are now what? Covered. Why do you get covered? You were naked, unashamed. You're now metaphorically covered, spiritually covered. I've got something about me now I don't want you to know. I'm covered. I got shame. I got hurt. I got something that it's going to act out of me. I'm going to pretend like it's not there, but it's going to be there. And that's the continual pain in childbirth when that happens. And then Adam being told you're going to go live off the land, basically, and not get the full benefits. What we're doing is we're losing our connection with the higher awareness where we come from. We have the next stage is a division. These are iterations of us. Eve was the mother of all. And you know what? Here's a very significant bias that we have. The first part of Genesis, chapters 1 through 11, there are still references to gods. It is not a full-on monotheism yet. From chapter 1 through 11 pre-existed the entire rest of Genesis. So when they were saying the mother of all, they meant in a very short period right there. It ended after the flood. It didn't continue on into Abram and Sarai. That came about later. The very first mother of all. Eve is the first iteration. Beyond that, we become new people as time goes on. We now are at a point where the Cain and Abel story shows a representation where one part of us is pleasing to the higher awareness. It's a good life. One of them is not. The one that is not wipes out the other one. So this is our early self taking over, represented in that story. And then what happens? Cain leaves the presence of the Lord. Now we are disconnected from the higher awareness. You'll notice in these stories that always happens. In the Babylonian creation myth, Apsu, the creator god, gets trapped away, doesn't return until Marduk, the called hero, is there to kick butt and take names. Here we have it as God returns when Noah is ready to go on the flood, kick butt and take names. God wipes out the planet Earth and starts over again. So God's gone through this whole time frame. That represents the time frame that we are not aware of the fact that we're now living life and just going off and having our experiences. We're dividing, and then what happens? We get a lineage. Time goes by. And then we're building tents and brass and different things like that. This represents the time in life where we're now growing up, going to school, getting our jobs, learning our trades, doing those sorts of things. And there's a point where in total corruption happens, where the world needs to be destroyed. That even the beautiful daughters of men, that's a weird thing. Well, what is that? That's our inner offspring. That was my joy. What were the daughters of my conscious and my subconscious? The beautiful daughters, what would that be? My good qualities. I have trust. I have love. I have objective. I'm open to all kinds of things. But at this point in life now, when that corruption happens, those are gone. I now don't trust. I don't like. I hate this. There's a problem. My world has become corrupted and needs to be destroyed. I'm going to stop there because that really ends the first. There's a template right there that's in use. You would find the same thing in Greek myth, exactly the same thing. Zeus creates the world and populates it with people, okay? God creates the world and populates it with Adam and Eve. Zeus wants the people to stay primitive. They are primitive. Prometheus gives them fire so that they can advance. Zeus doesn't like it, takes fire away, they get it back again. And what happens here? The idea then is that God put people on the planet and wanted them to stay primitive. In the Adam and Eve story, we have God put them in the Garden of Eden, but did not want them to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, not the knowledge tree. You can eat of all the things in life you want, but not these things that cause you to judge. We're going to, so the pathway in the story goes that way. But they parallel in that way then, where then what happens is that Prometheus is punished. He gets put on a cliff and he's chained up, and his liver gets eaten out by an eagle. And then it grows back and the liver gets eaten out, and it's painful every time that happens. So what we're looking at here is a cyclical pain element. In the same way that the liver is getting eaten out and growing back would be parallel in the Jewish story, the constant pain in childbirth. Every time something emerges and comes back, that's the cyclical pain that is actually there that's hurting us. So what we have then is creation, and then the creation of people, or Adam and Eve, and then they advance Same with Adam and Eve. They advance, punishment ensues. So there's a template there that it's hard to see conceptually what's going on, but that represents the life of a person, the stages of a person. Zeus, we're created in a mythological story from the cosmos. That we're a bunch of people, though. Instead of an Adam and Eve, they're going to advance. We start off with a collection of things up here, but we're very primitive to begin with, and we're meant to stay that way. However, Prometheus represents serpent. I'm going to give them fire. We get temptation anyway. So one of them sounds like a good thing. One of them sounds like a bad thing, but they're both. It's just the way the verbiage is being held on the template. You can make it sound good, or you can make it sound bad. We killed those poor people over there. Yay, we defeated our enemy. You can look at a story the same way, and you can make it sound good or sound bad, depending on whose side you're on. So that's what they're doing there, and that template gets hidden. But you have the Greek myth for entertainment, and then you've got the same template in use in Jewish religion. So what do you have then? Is that a religious form of mythology? No, not really. Mythology isn't even really mythology. What they are is stories built on a template of a human life, of basically how a human comes about. Adam and Eve is always around. Adam and Eve is each of us at birth, at a point in time in our life before we go on to become Cain and Abel, and then the earth that needs to be destroyed, and then Noah to go in and wipe it out, emerge on the other side, feeling buzzed off of our new life, drink wine off of your new vineyard, and you're naked and uncovered in your tent again. We got covered when the sin, after the healing, uncovered again. You have to look at those parallels and make it a psychological process and know that it plays out up here, and you realize, okay, that's how the story is framed. Calling them real and looking for them to happen real, it's kind of astounding to me that people still do that, because it's just, we know too much. It's like, come on, that's so unthinking that it's just kind of crazy. But okay, anyway, you just notice that if you read through the story, you'll notice that Adam comes about first. Think of your own life. You were conscious first. I got circumcised. I don't remember it. Why? Because Eve wasn't there yet. I was still developing. I was simply Adam at that point. At some point in time, I am now self-aware, and I know that I'm being whipped. And I'm finding my brother after he had taken his life in the woods at the age of 11. I'm beginning to have these life experiences. I'm consuming from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil at this time in my life. And then I go from that kid that could be a good kid to a kid that is I'm angry, I'm hurt. By the age of 12 or 13, I'm cutting. I have a lot of issues. And I'm being told to pray more. Something's really broken here. But I fit on the template. I look at that and go, okay, that's the time in my life where I was corrupt, where my life was corrupt and all my inner qualities needed to be destroyed. And I needed to turn into Noah and turn inward and start facing these things for a forgiveness or a resolution of the things that I have judged in life, which then changes your life. You never become Adam and Eve again, but everybody's Adam and Eve at one time in their life. Now, there could be exceptions. There are children that are born in homes that aren't wanted, and they're probably beaten from the get-go. So this story fits for a time and a place where we're assuming that everybody has a time in their life that there is a happy childhood. I did have a happy childhood in some cases. It was weird. There was a blend of things going on. I was getting burned with cigarettes from the biological father at a really young age. Later on, there were some fun things happening, but then the belt would come out, and so there was a blend. At some point in time, the mind shifts to always this fear of when you don't know when happiness is going to come. It's not a big deal. When you don't know when the whippings are going to come, suddenly that's a big deal. Your mind starts becoming paranoid, looking for, well, here it comes all the time. Here it comes all the time. And you wire that way, and you become products of that. And all of that needs to be resolved. I mean, for some people, I had an extreme case. For other people, I had a very mild case. There's people out there in war zones that would say, can we trade lives, buddy? Please. You don't know how good you have it. So we have to understand and know those things like that. Anyway, I'm going all over the place, but it's human psychology. And Adam and Eve is everybody, presumably, at that time in life before you began to get hurt. Right there. That's the true story of Adam and Eve. And the only reason it would exist. And when you do that, you find that template exists in other teachings as well, written in different verbiage. They're like fables in a way, except that they all have a psychological healing component to the religious ones. Yeah, I will say that Jesus' teachings, blessed are the poor in spirit, for yours is the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is the connection to that inner higher awareness where we're not living through the memories anymore. People think it's something outward that they're going to get when they die, when actually we're told it's here and now. We got to look for it. It's very cryptic, but it's here and now, not later. People are going to wait till later because it's easier, but honestly, it's here and now for the people that find it. So, what is poor in spirit? What is spirit? Spirit is ultimately, we think a spirit is this disembodied sort of energy that continues on. But if we interpret the material properly and call it all psychological and say that it's an analog, then what spirit is the bundle of memories, the mote in the eye, the ought against the brother. It is but it's also the good stuff. It's what we live through in the background. And ultimately, that includes the general psychological state as well. We sense life and emotionally through our central nervous system. So the brain state up here and the way we generally feel as a result of it is spiritual. And I'm going to suggest that only if you interpret it in that way can you interact with it. If you don't interpret it like that, you can't interact with it. How could you be poor in spirit? What would you do? You want to empty this out up here is the only way that makes sense. All these judgments that you've made that you're living through, you want to empty them out again. So all of these at some point, and yours is the kingdom of God, nirvana, the happiness, the peace now. You can say, oh, you know what? I've forgiven my brother and God is rewarding me now. That would be fine. That would be fine as long as you've forgiven your brother. But most people don't forgive their brother and they just think God's going to reward them for worshiping them and that it's going to be done later. So yeah, the religion is doing that outward looking thing, but when it turns inward, it suddenly becomes something that is mentally interactive. It is no longer the blind leading the blind. It is now the person who seeks and knocks. And when you do, you find a universal truth that it's like a global peace. It's no longer tribal. If it comes out as tribal in your interpretation, you're not interpreting it properly. And Christians to say that's how the world came about in 7 days and was created is just the most fifth grade Sunday school teaching that there is. That's ridiculous. There's a reason for this story to be there, though. Atheists, same thing. I mean, you guys think that it's just all baloney. There's nothing there. It's all crap. It isn't. There's something there that is a psychological path. The entire Bible is going to be that way. Anyway, I know I'm going all over the place, but it's kind of trying to describe that this Adam and Eve is an iteration of us, and that as you go through the rest of it, we become those parts of the story as well. It plays out in the theater of the mind. Use your imagination. Put it up there. Put yourself, each of these are you or parts of you over time. The good side, the bad side, the young side, the later side. It continues to, they blend iterations in here. What happens in the older part of the Bible from Genesis 1 through 11, and Ham is going to be the father of Canaan under the old story. Ham is one of Noah's 3 sons. And then Abram is called, actually, and put in the land of Canaan in chapter 12 when the religion starts. But later they combine them when it's time for the calling to happen. In this part of the story, you're also Abram and Sarai. That's the same thing as Adam and Eve. In the Garden of Eden, without something to eat, you can eat this, but not that. There's dietary control. Or Abram and Sarai put in the land of Canaan, promised land, Eden, Canaan, but there was a famine in the land. So there's nothing there, devoid. We're starting out empty in life. Same thing. They're shared motifs, but they're difficult to see. They play out up here. My consciousness is Abram. My subconscious is Sarai. And I'm in a happy place, but there's nothing to live and experience with here. So I have to go off and live, I see. And then I'm going to give myself over to Pharaoh. And in this union, I'm going to gather some animals and slaves or men and women servants. And then when Pharaoh finds out, I get sent on my way. It's a sequence of life along the way. with Pharaoh representing life in the same way that the serpent did here. Also, the elements you'll see is that God was not there to stop it from, God's gone. God put him there and then left. So we've left our higher awareness. And what happens is plagues go as a result. There's your cyclical pain element. It's always going to be there. And then when Abram is called to go for the destruction of Sodom, just like Noah was called to go for the destruction of the earth, same identical motifs. My earth, my Sodom, my earlier self. My early self, Abram and Sarai, now goes, oh, I'm living through my memories. I become Abraham and Sarah. And what was that? Abram and Ham, Abraham. We're going to have iterations that we've got of people coming along here. Tubal Cain. There's a point where a father has some sons, and then the father dies in one of his sons. How does that happen? In the physical world, you go, that's just crazy. That can't make sense. Up here, if you make it a metaphor and say, okay, this represents a part of my older self that has now died to a newer part of myself. Okay, that's what it means. But they're tricky. You have to take the time and work them out that way. Adam and Eve, yeah, there you go. Those are my thoughts on it. I can't imagine this story being true in any way, shape, or form, but I can see absolutely how it fits a template that if you look at, this would be my life today. I can modernize this. But if it was 6,000 years ago, I see myself on this template, somehow figuring it out. I mean, we know the flood didn't happen. We know, however, the flood would be a good metaphor for wiping something out. Imagine out there on this fertile plain in primitive times when animals and things like that died, or between flood seasons, it would probably become, there'd probably be places out there on the floodplain that would cause you to gag. It would activate your gag reflex. It'd be so bad. But when a flood comes through, it wipes everything out and it starts over again. So there's a perfect metaphor for the idea of I need to wash away my sins. I need to flood away my sins. But what does it really mean? It means letting go of your agreements. It means saying, you know what, I had these experiences and I feel this way about them, and I have to find a way to resolve this feeling because that's what I'm living through. And when I resolve those feelings, I stop living through them. Okay, now we're on to something. People don't like it to be that simple, but that's what it is. Adam and Eve, yeah, still here. Every time that child's happy, before they go out in life and learn that life is not a play box, that it hurts, that it beats, it steals, it molests, it rapes, it kills. And we get caught up in that, and it destroys our sanctity. And we need to let go of that so we can return to our sanctity. We have to stop living through our memories. We need to return to our Adam and Eve times. Notice we can't return to Eden. You have to go to a new place. That's a fun thing. You can't go. When you were in Eden, you were ignorant. We were little children, bliss. Now we know things. We have to find bliss while knowing things that we didn't know then. So you have to find a new happy place, a place that's more mature, a place where you also have the knowledge of your experiences, but they've been nullified. All right, Adam and Eve, there we are. I was once Adam and Eve. So were you. And our children and everybody. Hopefully. See you in the next video.